It's a familiar sight at Marathon, a welcoming party for the newest New York Mets. Fletcher Bates and Roger Martinez have joined the Hunter Eagles ranks after two other American imports were forced home with injuries.
I heard it's a great, baseball organization that's just getting bigger, so I'm excited about getting started with it.
Bates is an outfield switch hitter, Martinez a catcher, but Roger has his eye on improving other parts of his game.
Definitely concentrate on hitting the ball a little better, my catching's been fine, hone in a little skills, mainly I just want to concentrate on hitting.
The new players joined the Eagles on perhaps their biggest high ever. If the 3-1 series win over the Melbourne Reds wasn't enough, the club received another big honour today. Shortstop Christopher Bradley named the ABL's Player of the Week. It's the first time in more than 2 years an Eagle has won the award. Bradley recognised for his 8 hits, which included a double, triple and 2 home runs. The 26-year-old will again be the backbone of the Hunter Eagles charge when the side meets the Blues in Sydney this weekend. Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
Two years ago, the Health Service began an acute hospital planning study to assess the future of local hospitals. A summary report of Phase 1 has now been completed, which indicates plans to transfer services from Royal Newcastle Hospital to a new community health centre in the CBD. The hospital itself would then be closed and the site turned into a residential tourism type development. The Health Service says the study is still in its very early stages and open to discussion. But Rose Cogger of the Hill Residents Group says any move to close the Royal Newcastle Hospital would have a negative effect on the area.
We need the hospital for an employment generator. It's one of the most efficient orthopaedic hospitals in the Southern Hemisphere. It's easily accessible by public transport.
A final report on the hospital study will be submitted to the Health Minister in May next year. Emma Ossian, NBN News.
The $50,000 television and radio blitz is unashamedly targeted at young male drivers under 25. It's been timed to coincide with one of the most dangerous periods of the year on the region's roads.
They're getting into their Christmas parties for work and for uni. They're finishing their HSC, so they're out on the roads, they're going to the beach.
Figures for last year show more than 10,000 people were involved in car accidents in the Hunter region. 65% were men, and of those, a quarter were under 25. One who knows more than most about the human cost of those statistics is 22-year-old Matthew Bacon. In the past 5 years, he's lost 6 friends in car crashes.
It's easy to change after you've suffered a loss. I just hope that people don't have to find out the hard way just how easy that is.
While the campaign is primarily targeted at young men, it also seeks to send a strong message to young women to play a more active role in road safety.
If they know their boyfriends or a boy they're with has been drinking, or they know that they don't feel safe in that car, to say no.
The campaign will run in 2 stages, a 1-month media blitz beginning tomorrow and again over the Christmas-New Year period.
More than 4,500 times 40-year-old receptionist Jenny Turton embezzled money from her employer, a Port Stephens doctor. From 1991 until December last year, she stole almost daily, taking money patients paid for treatment, in all more than $110,000. But it's what she did with the money that a district court judge in Newcastle today described as fantastic and a fairy tale. He said, "It is one of the most bizarre stories I have ever encountered during my 15 years on the bench. Under questioning from her counsel Lee Carr, Mrs Turton told how she left $500 a week in the mailbox to pay her dead brother's drug debts. If she didn't pay, she believed her family would be harmed. She has no idea who demanded the money. Ever since her deception was uncovered, Mrs Turton has maintained her story of extortion. She denies the money was spent on a lavish lifestyle, which included holidays to Russia, Vanuatu, Hawaii, America and England. Of her claims, Judge Maguire said, "I simply do not believe this lady." However, he could not determine what happened to the money. With her husband's help, Mrs Turton has taken out a loan and repaid $80,000. She'll continue to pay the remaining $30,000. She was sentenced to 18 months periodic detention and placed on a 5-year good behaviour bond. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Black and white, old and young, ethnic Australians and new arrivals filled a conference room at City Hall to speak with one voice against what many fear is an increase in racist activity in the Hunter.
Recently, there were reports of racist graffitis in university toilets, and we have also seen the senseless attack on the properties of very honest, upright businessmen.
While a number of speakers pointed to the influence of maverick federal MP Pauline Hanson in the race and immigration debate, rally organisers say the root of the problem goes much deeper.
It's not like no one was doing anything and suddenly it's reared its head. It's always been there.
Today's forum heard in comparison to many communities, Newcastle has a reputation for tolerance and understanding. The Ethnic Affairs Commission believes while racism can't be ignored, recent increased activity will fade.
The Hunter region has such a beautiful record of community cohesion. It's like a beautiful person with something with a big bad pimple flaring up on your face.
City officials hope today's anti-racism forum will inspire other communities to take action.
So I think we'd be a good example and a good case, good leadership to the rest of the country.
Phil Hind, NBN News.
After 2 long years in John Hunter Hospital, 9-year-old James Sidebottom is going home. He became a quadriplegic 2 years ago after an accident on a hoist at Narrabri. Since then, he's been under the watchful eye of dedicated nursing staff who rewarded an eager James for his persistence. And it appears he's grown to love his carers.
The nurses were good and I couldn't really get on with the school teachers, but
James's father, Malcolm, set about clearing away what's been home for the last 2 years. And then there was time to say goodbye to some old friends and some new friends.
Ria, Cornell, Scott Hanley, Timothy Toll, and lots of others.
Now outside the confines of hospital, things will be moving a little faster for James. He now has his sights set on watching his beloved Manly Warringah next year. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
Get all the fucking cash here. Yeah? Yes.
So far this year, there have been 42 deaths by suicide in the Gosford and Wyong areas, double the number of similar deaths recorded this time last year. At the Central Coast Leagues Club, those who'd been touched by such tragedies united in a show of support.
The idea of a summit was to try to bring the community together, to bring professionals and non-professionals alike, to see that the problem is everyone's problem.
Foremost on the agenda was the lack of support structures and, more importantly, the lack of funding for such bodies. Suggestions included extending the levy currently imposed for the gun buyback scheme for a further 2 years, the funds being channelled into suicide services. Also raised at the meeting the importance of networking, health workers, doctors, police and teachers actively sharing information rather than assuming the person in need of help can find it themselves.
It doesn't quite happen that way, and when we're dealing with difficult populations where people are much in distress, it's very difficult for them to know where to go next or who's going to pick up the slack.
The land near Beresfield on the New England Highway is zoned rural and has the potential for an open-cut mine. Residents are worried about a mine so close to their homes, and councils at Maitland and Newcastle are considering ways of having the land rezoned residential. Councillors and planners toured the area today. A rezoning of the land would mean councils must justify its inclusion in a regional conservation plan being prepared by the Department of Urban Affairs and Planning.
Both councils have a very strong case not to agree to the mining, but unfortunately that could be out of our hands if the state government steps in. That's why we're trying to include the state government in the decision making. But if this mine went ahead, an open cut mine in that location, it's only a stone's throw from Beresfield and Thornton. It's not far from the Black Hill area, and I just think that it's a most inappropriate development to even contemplate mining in that location.
Kevin Curtin overcame the odds to win the New South Wales 600cc Supersport Championships. He entered the final round well behind on points, but won 2 races and finished second in the third to leapfrog his rivals. As soon as the 30-year-old returned to Wangi, he started looking to an even bigger season next year. The state champion is hoping to receive the call-up from a 750cc superbike distributor.
Because basically that's the next step up from 600 Supersport, and superbikes are probably the farthest you can go in Australia until you go overseas and head for the GP scene.
Curtin has no doubts he can make the jumping class. In fact, he's done it all before. He still has the shell of the 250cc production bike that took him to an Australian title in '95. It's been a big step this year, and now he's ready for the next challenge. There is a backup.
But if we don't get a superbike ride, we've got a really good 600 deal already set up for next year, so that might be a bigger and better year.
One way or the other, racing starts in March. Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
For truck drivers, especially those making multiple pickups and deliveries, knowing how much load they're carrying can often be a matter of educated guesswork. Guesswork which can result in hefty fines for overloading.
Well, I got booked for overloading myself once, and I put 2 and 2 together, and I've played around with engine management a lot, and I could see an opening.
Tom Lyne's now patented answer, an electronic sensor which, at the touch of a button, can instantly and accurately measure the load on the axles. In this demonstration, a simulated load is placed on the truck, the measuring arm drops into place, and a microprocessor calculates the weight, which is then relayed to a readout in the cab.
Saves him a lot of time, saves him money, and takes all the guesswork out of it.
The load sensor is the product of $300,000 and 2 years research and development. The load sensor may also have applications beyond simply telling truckies how much weight they're carrying. It could be wired as a safety device similar to a speed limiter. A built-in alarm system could be set up to sound an alert when a truck is overloaded.
We could turn the horn on or turn the hazard lights on, or if it's got electronic injection, like a lot of new trucks have, we can shut the system down.
Tom Lyne's company is now in negotiations with several major trucking companies to fit the sensors. Phil Hind, NBN News.
The outsider's perception of the Hunter as an industry-based centre could be a thing of the past. In an ambitious marketing package, potential investors will be told of the region's business diversity. Launching the Hunter Investment Marketing Package today, State Treasurer Michael Egan believes shedding the old image is vital to the Hunter's economic prosperity.
Part of the job of attracting new investment and new business is changing that perception, not just outside of Australia, but we also have to start changing it within Australia.
Last week's announcement that Williamtown will provide parts and maintenance for the RAF's Hawk 100s is just one example of major new investment. Hunter Regional Development Organisation Chief Peter Morris claims it's time for other industries to follow suit.
A great step forward for the region. What we've got now is an overall economic development strategy for the region, which all organisations, industries, government agencies can participate in.
The Hunter Economic Development Corporation now has the job of turning the promise into reality. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
It was a room full of the stars of the sporting world, players and administrators alike, the night honouring the most outstanding performances of the last 12 months. Heading the presentations, the Junior Sportsperson of the Year award, it was won by up-and-coming sailor John Jefferson. The Disabled Award was shared by Christy Skelton and Clint Towers, then the major announcement, the Lake Macquarie Sportsperson of the Year. The award caps off a brilliant year for Ward. The youngest member of the Australian softball team played a key role in the medal-winning performance in Atlanta.
It looked like the trucks had exploded. At 6 this morning, the driver of the fully laden semi-trailer lost control of his vehicle on a sharp bend at the bottom of a steep hill just north of Singleton. The rig crossed to the wrong side of the road, smashing into a 5-tonne tabletop truck. The impact killed both men instantly. The occupants of 3 cars were rocked by debris, but amazingly all escaped serious injury. The road was closed for several hours as a crane removed the wreckage, piece by piece. Only half an hour after the Singleton crash, the New England Highway claimed 2 more victims. The driver of the Toyota Corona veered to the wrong side of the road at Rutherford near Maitland, hitting a van head-on. Both male drivers were trapped, but later released and airlifted to Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital. The driver of the Corona from nearby Branxton died shortly after 10. The Newcastle driver of the van lost his battle this afternoon. It's been a tragic 3 days on the New England Highway. The first victims, 2 young occupants of a panel van at Tamworth on Saturday. Police say the van was travelling at a high speed when it hit a semi-trailer. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Concept plans for the $4.2 million interchange went on display at a public meeting this afternoon. The centre, which is designed to fit in with the precinct's historic architecture, will accommodate 6 buses and taxis. Designers also hope a square and gardens will provide a pedestrian link between the city centre and the harbour.
We've redeveloped the car park, made it a lot more efficient and just provided much more landscape space for the public to use, not just those that are taking buses or interchanging between buses and trains.
The unveiling of the plan comes a week after the local Chamber of Commerce called for the replacement of the heavy gauge line between Civic Station and Newcastle. It wants a light railway to complete the journey into Newcastle, doing away with what it calls a dingo fence dividing the city. However, the state government has ruled out the proposal and says it's time the Chamber accepted the decision.
That is a position that has been determined by the government. And really it's time to get positive and get behind the decision that has been made and really work hard together as a community to improve public transport use in the city.
The Department of Transport is expected to submit the plan to Council before the end of the year for approval. However, the timetable is tight. Work on the project must be substantially underway by the middle of next year, or else funding under the government's Building Better Cities program could be withdrawn. Phil Hind, NBN News.
The RAF's contract to purchase approximately 40 Hawk jet trainers is yet to be formally signed, but planning is well advanced to build the necessary assembly and maintenance facilities at Williamtown. As some of those have played a role in seeing the operation based in the Hunter met at Port Stephens Council today, it was revealed there had been competition from other areas.
There are very good facilities in Avalon, Tullamarine, in South Australia, in Adelaide and in Western Australia and other places.
On land that forms part of the airport complex, a 100-metre-long hangar will be built, connected to the airstrip by a taxiway. By June 1999, after 12 are flown in ready to go, high-tech fighters will be being assembled here. The major components shipped in from England, each aircraft taking 16 weeks to put together. Although the huge contract will produce only 40 direct jobs, it's hoped it proves a catalyst for other allied industries.
Oh, look, a huge opportunity for the Shire, huge opportunity for the Hunter. This lead-in fighter is going to lead the Hunter into the new millennium. These are the sorts of jobs we need.
Earthworks for the site are expected to begin in the middle of next year. Jim Sullivan, NBN News.
More than 50 angry retailers joined members of the Save Katara Action Group in Newcastle last night, all trying to convince council to reject the development of markets in Katara. They've slammed the latest study into the proposal, maintaining the move would mean a loss in business to the tune of $22 million for the CBD.
I just see it as another study that the council, whenever they got their backs to the wall on this matter, they then requested another study from Rubicon.
However, planning consultant Ian Booth maintains the move to establish a co-op store in Hunter Street West will offset retail losses.
If both developments go ahead by the end of next year, we estimate that total trade in Newcastle CBD, including the co-op store, would be about $395 million. That's an increase of well over $40 million in Newcastle CBD.
Council plans to meet with retailers and residents again to discuss the proposal. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
It was fantastic. It was a really great experience and we all loved it.
As their age increases, so does the pressure on nursing staff to provide adequate care. Looking after this section of our community has become the concern of the University of Newcastle and Baptist Community Services. They're jointly funding a research project looking at specific problems faced by the elderly.
Like pain management, what's the best way of helping older people cope with pain, the treatment of depression in older folk, the treatment of their skin.
The unit will be the first of its kind in the state to deal specifically with aged care. Nursing staff from local homes will work with the unit under the guidance of Dr. Irene Stein, who was officially appointed at the university today.
With a lot of this research, it's local to the area, it's specific to a particular nursing home, it's specific to a particular environment, and it's very, very important.
The research centre will be operating before Christmas. Vanessa Spark, NBN News. It may not have been war, but the battle against time and the elements was real enough for these members of the Royal Australian Regiment. Operating on 2 hours sleep a night, all their energy was needed to complete the gruelling obstacle course at Singleton's Army Base.
Now, this is a culmination of 4 hard days with irregular hours and a mixture of endurance events, shooting skills, navigation, everything that we'd expect them to be able to do as infantry soldiers on operations.
For 50 years, the Duke of Gloucester Cup has been the prize every battalion wants to take home. 3 days behind them, the men mustered all remaining strength today to negotiate their way through a maze of mud, ropes and barbed wire. Watching on with pride was Victoria Cross winner Edward Kenner, who served as a private in the 2nd 4th Battalion in New Guinea.
They're better everywhere because they're more mobile, something Australia should be proud of.
As the teams trudged through the final stages, the end became a reality.
Good effort. One to the right, put the left down.
At times it was hard, mentally and physically, but otherwise it wasn't too bad.
After the points were tallied, the winner was announced. The 2nd Royal Australian Regiment from Townsville taking home this year's Duke of Gloucester Cup. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.